You're listening to Beyond YOLO, a youth podcast series on real-life stories of resilience in Victoria's North East and New South Wales border region. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands and waters on which we gather, and share these stories and pay our respects to elders, past and present, and encourage everyone to be the champions of our emerging leaders and elders of our future. This episode deals with self-harm, drug use and suicide, and it may be triggering to some listeners. Please take care while listening.
I've always looked at myself and not liked myself. I've never really been comfortable in my own body. My name is Sheridan Rose, I'm 18 years old and I live in Albury, New South Wales. In the early 90s, my mum got raped. At the time she was working as a prostitute. My mum got in a really abusive relationship and he would mentally and physically abuse her. He would brainwash her a lot and he didn't help her with her drug addiction or anything. One day they were cooking drugs in the bathroom and there was an explosion and I was right there when that happened. I was 3. My auntie pretty much said to my mum, "You're unable to look after her. We're going to take her to New Zealand." After I moved to New Zealand at the age of 5, memories started to come back. I get locked up in the cupboard, handcuffed to doors, get hit. I thought that my mum had abandoned me, and I didn't understand that my mum was addicted to drugs, and it was the best thing for me to be out of that situation. As the years went on, I thought that maybe I was right. Maybe my mum doesn't want me. In 2013, my first year of high school, I was getting bullied for my appearance. I got kicked to the ground a couple of times. I got slapped. I got cornered once a couple of times in the girls' bathroom and pushed to the ground. They thought it was funny to throw scissors at me. I was self-harming a lot. I was having panic attacks. I was pushing myself away from people. I wouldn't leave my room. I wouldn't eat. It got to the point where I was over it. So I had my first suicide attempt. A couple of years went by. I didn't hear anything about Mum. Didn't know where she was. Didn't know what she was doing. My grandparents even hired a private investigator to find my mum, and that didn't work. And in about 2011 or 2012, they found Mum again. And then I started having a bit of contact with her after that. In early 2015, I came to Albury for a holiday to see Mum. It was the first time I'd seen her since I was 5. I was 15. It wasn't like an instant motherly, daughterly connection. I'd lived with my grandparents for 11 years, but my mum was clearly back in the picture and she hadn't given me any reason that she was going to pack up and leave again. So I decided maybe we should try moving back in together. I needed to talk about what had happened when I was little and get everything on the table. She said she didn't remember any of that stuff happening. That was pretty heartbreaking.
My name's Kate Ritchie. I'm a senior youth worker at Yes Unlimited. Not long after Sheridan moved back to Albury, she had a 3rd suicide attempt in 2016 and a 4th in 2017. Often when young people have experienced such complex trauma such as Sheridan had throughout her life, this sort of trauma manifests in lots of different ways. When I began working with her, I started to notice that the trauma was coming out in the form of an eating disorder.
I was bullied for my appearance, so I always had a lot of disordered eating. I'd either eat with my emotions or I wouldn't eat. And I feel like my eating disorder kind of played in too with a lot of my other mental health issues like my OCD and my anxiety. I went to a facility in Sydney in November of last year to get treatment for anorexia, and I had so many side effects from my eating disorder, like having nerve damage in my feet and, well, everything was a mess. I think a lot of the stress of moving to Australia had come on top of me, and I wasn't really talking to Mum much about my mental health. In previous situations where I'd tried to, or I'd had anxiety attacks, or I'd self-harmed, well, she freaked out. And those kind of things put me off about being open with Mum about my mental health. I just wanted to release my pain. I've had a lot of help since I got out in January. I've had Kate, and she's helped me a lot through my eating disorder. She was the one who made me realise what was going on in the first place, because I was so mind-fogged I didn't even know what was going on. And my mum's clean. She's been clean for about 6 years now. And she has a lot of mental health issues herself. And she's got scoliosis in her spine, which affects her health a lot. And she walks with a walking stick now, and she's only 47. She has a lot of night terrors, and she doesn't get a lot of sleep, which would affect anyone's mood. She sees a psychiatrist, but I think my mum's in an all right place.
Something that's struck me as quite remarkable about Sheridan is the level of compassion and empathy for what her mother has experienced and gone through in her own life. She never has laid any sort of blame on Mum. There's that real just desire, I suppose, to reconnect and have that relationship with Mum.
I feel like I'm pretty content. I haven't achieved everything that I would like to have achieved at this point in my life, but I feel like I have achieved, well, a lot as well, especially with my mental health and how far I've come with it. So I just try to be open and honest with anyone that I feel comfortable with now, because I know that holding my feelings in doesn't get me anywhere.
If the content of this podcast has caused you distress, then please reach out and talk about it with people you trust. Kids Helpline and Lifeline are just a phone call away and always there to listen. Call them on 1800 55 1800 or 131114, or visit the Headspace website at headspace.org.au. Big thanks to Sheridan Rose for sharing her story. Please note that Sheridan chose not to have her voice recorded for the podcast. Instead, local actor Rachel McNamara voices Sheridan's words. This story was developed for the Beyond YOLO Youth Podcast series by writer Amy Chan and produced by Alison Plastow and Tony Grace of Out of Line. Special thanks to Kate Ritchie, Amy Tobin, Emma Aldrich and Niki Strauss. Intros and outros were voiced by Forrest Dickinson. Beyond YOLO has been made possible thanks to funding from the Regional Arts Fund in both Victoria and New South Wales. Murray Arts would like to thank their core funding partners. A big thank you also to ABC Goulburn Murray. This is a Murray Arts podcast series. If you enjoyed this podcast, tell your peeps so that they can too. You only live once. Beyond YOLO.